There were 3 curators. One of those curators was Chris Strad, who is the director of the garden. And what was interesting about this exhibition is that this fictional family and their costumes, that the people who were interested in Downton Abbey were just enthralled with the family and just every aspect of it. And that led into their interest into the real life family of the DuPonts. While our exhibition building is capable of having lots of people go through it, our museum is not. And so we had lines going all the way through because people were interested in the real life family. So when our then director, Dave Roselle, approached Chris and said, well, would you consider having an outdoor exhibition? What Chris wanted to do is have an exhibition that, again, would tell a story about ourselves. So instead of having an artist coming in, such as Chihuly, he thought, well, how can we talk about the design of the garden? And that's how Follies came into being. So here's a lovely, we have great archives. This is a lovely picture of one of our sunken gardens. These would have been a series of gardens that would be below the reflecting pool that is there now. And you can see the Follies in the background. And so they are lovely. They don't necessarily have to have a functional purpose. And that's kind of the reason about Follies. So here is a lovely scene where it's essentially a very dramatic rose arbor, but people are gathering around it. What we're doing for the public too is also introducing them to kind of a new term. Follies tends to be a little bit more of a British term. We tend to be a little bit more specific. We would say a rose arbor, a Gothic tower, architectural elements, things of that sort. But Follies is this wonderful umbrella term for all of these structures, including ruins, gardens, and things of that sort. What I want to do is walk you through the exhibition featuring our historic structures and then also the new constructs that we have in there. First is the Latimeria collection, and the Latimeria collection is a series of these follies that are placed in the Peony Garden. And they were placed there with H.F. DuPont and Marion Kruger Kaufman. And she was a wonderful family friend, but one of the first female landscape architects. And so they thoughtfully placed these in the Peony Garden. But they came from the Latimer estate. And this would have been found in Broome and 4th Street in Wilmington. And when the house was going to be destroyed, H.F. DuPont went and took a look at these architectural elements and decided to save them. John Latimer was in the China trade, so they have a little bit of an Asian flair, a little bit of chinoiserie in that way. Here's some historic pieces. One up here, so you can see them being constructed and placed in the landscape. I figured this group would be interested. With our historic follies, as we were opening up, we had to do a little bit of work on them. And here you can see some of the construction of it. I love, this reminds me of a Smith Island cake, just all the layers of the roof there. It's fascinating. We did do a couple of changes. At the top you can see there's a little bit of a piece that's put on, not historic of course. We went through our historian and documented. We just want to be able to save the roof a little bit, and the roof cap will go over top of that. You can see some damage to the fascia board. We also, the recommendation was to put an extra layer of shingle just to protect that. So those were some modifications that we made to that particular piece. The 1750 house has an interesting and a similar story to it. It came from the house of Alexander and Elizabeth Porter, and that was found down in Newcastle, Delaware. This house again was going to be destroyed, and H.F. DuPont liked that pattern brickwork, wanted to save it. So you can see the facade that says PAE 1750. Behind that shed is a smokehouse. So what he did is took both of those facades, married them together, and put them to the new location that would house his air conditioning unit. So there's a facade to dress up the air conditioner. A neoclassical folly is one of our new follies that in the landscape. And our reason for that is because, you know, a little Greek portico is kind of like the little black dress in the landscape. It goes with anything. It could be large, it could be placed on a hillside, it could be small and intimate. And so we had to do that little nod, putting that into the landscape. And it was through this process that we also found that the Newcastle County was interested in us having all this documented and go through a review process. So we had to work with an architect and an engineer to get renderings for this so that we could meet code. And in the process of working with the Haddonstone pieces and putting it together, one thing that came up is we didn't want to just destroy all this when we were finished with it in 2 years. Most people, when they're putting this together, would put it together with cement. We thought, well, how could we maybe give this another life if someone wanted to buy these pieces, if we wanted to have this exhibition as an exhibition that could go onto another garden. And so here we are working out some of those details, and for this one in particular, instead of cementing it together, we have steel that is reinforcement in that. So here you have steel columns going in, and then the sleeves going on over top. If you look at the bottom of the columns, there are little spacers that are in there that then are filled with caulking. So in theory, it'll be easy to undo all these things if someone else wants it in a different location. And better than having a wrecking ball go and take these down. So here's the finished product. I think this is going to be absolutely gorgeous, having this solid structure when the meadow goes up around it and the goldenrod in the fall. The next is the mirrored folly. Some of the inspiration behind that, you can see mirrored follies have this wonderful reflective quality in the landscape, giving a surreal look at things. They often have this really streamlined, very modern look to it, and we thought, well, how can we winterize that a bit? And so the basis for our mirrored folly comes from the train station. And the train station was designed by Theophilus P. Chandler, and its architecture is very different from many on the estate. And you can see the small porte cochere or covered porch, that's a part of it, has great lines to it. And the fellow who constructed that also made this wonderful little model. Again, this is the base and the top, and then very easily can be taken apart and moved. But it helped him also figure out how he was going to create this piece. And then here is it in the landscape with acrylic mirrored shingles. The brick lookout is one of our historic features here. This was done a little bit later in H.F. DuPont's life. It was placed here in the 60s, and it has this wonderful view going into the sundial garden for the with the armillary sphere in its view. Iconic picture of it in the daffodils. It's a very beautiful structure and really gives these wonderful views through the different pieces of the arches. Its first life was a storage unit, and I've heard many different things, but I also heard it had rubbish cans in it, and that's what I like. You know, it's a very fancy rubbish can holder there. But when that was getting reconstructed and moved around, H.F. DuPont wanted to save that roof. It's a leaded copper roof, leaded covered copper roof, designed by Thomas Waterman. And so then he had that moved and put into place in the garden. It has an armillary sphere in it. Of course, the light is never going to hit that, but it's that wonderful nod in the direction that you're supposed to look into the sundial garden. We have the Bristol Summer House, another one of our featured follies in the landscape. And the story behind this is that H.F. DuPont visited the Linden Place in Bristol, Rhode Island, and fell in love with the architecture and the detail of this. He hired George Howe, an architect down in DC, to take renderings of it so that he could put it back into his garden. He made some changes. He didn't want to have a wood floor to it, so he took brick from a house in Bristol, Rhode Island that was going to be destroyed and placed it in there, so keeping that Bristol connection. This is also another piece that had to get some work done on it. I thought you would appreciate the underbelly of it. It's beautiful. And one of the details that I didn't pay attention to, because I'm also looking at it from below, was the quality of the shingles there. Instead of having a hip cap to it, the hips are woven into one another. And here is the carpenter working on that and just shaping those so that they weave together. And that it was interesting looking at that and seeing H.F. DuPont appreciated that detail to it as well. We have the Ottoman Tent, one of our new features. Historically, you can see a few of these in the English and European landscape. They may have started out as canvas, but they end up being fiberglass or painted metal. The one in the center is actually a hestercomb, and it is canvas. You can see some holes in the top of the tent there, but it's small enough that you can change it around anytime you like. Since our exhibition is only 2 years, we decided to go with canvas. We found Raj Tent out in California who have just options and options and options. So we had to cull it down and decide which we wanted. We'll probably have a different coating on it next year. And here's our finished product. The Fairy Cottage is one of our featured ones of historic in one sense, although the Enchanted Woods was created in 2001. Again, it kind of following in the tradition of H.F. DuPont, it is a garden that is featuring a lot of repurposed elements from the farm and from the former estate. I showed this picture a little bit earlier, but there are all the columns, some of the features in the wall, those that have been taken down during H.F. DuPont's time. What is now in its place is the research library, the Crown and Shield building. Those pieces were preserved and then reinterpreted in Enchanted Woods. And you can see some of those details in the cottage itself. The Gothic Tower is one of our new follies and is placed on Oak Hill with a commanding view to it. The inspiration behind it would be towers, pretty simple. These are some towers that you would see, Paynes Hill and Stourhead in England. Part of it is, there were huge visions in the landscape, but you're really treated to a view from it. We couldn't, for a 2-year exhibition, we didn't want to go with wood or brick. That would be a little bit of an undertaking. We created a black tower out of charred wood, or shisugi bond. It's a Japanese way of preserving wood through charring. We also brought in a blacksmith to help with some of the details in the railing. And that's our finished product. The Chinese Pavilion, the inspiration for that comes from the Chinese house at Stowe in England. And this is a wonderful piece dating back to 1738. A little fun fact is one of the people that went through the Winterthur program was responsible for some of the conservation that was done on this. And it's a lovely piece, a lot of detail to it, so I went and took renderings, pictures, and things of that sort so that we could recreate that as best we could at Winterthur in our own style. We couldn't have all this trompe-l'oeil painting, so our inspiration for the outside came from within. This is the wallpaper, the Chinese wallpaper in the Chinese parlor at Winterthur, one of our iconic rooms. And what we did is we took little vignettes, took pictures of the interior wallpaper, and that formed the template for the exterior. And we did the same for the interior wall, comes from the Port Royal wallpaper. We put a little Winterthur spin as well on the finial. This is the hippocampus that is in the reflecting pool. The original, made out of lead, was compromised kids were sitting on the tail, it slid, it started to buckle a little bit. So that was preserved, and then a replica was placed out there. So we still have the mold, and we had them recast, and then that serves as the finial and arras. And it served as, we have the fine architecture here, it served as a template for a gingerbread house during Yuletide, which is kind of fun. This year I want to have all Folly inspired gingerbread houses for Yuletide, so we'll see how that goes. The green Folly is one, we weren't sure what we wanted to do with that, and the inspiration came from England, as all things did. It was one of the follies that Prince Charles has in his landscape in the garden at Highgrove, and a lot of them were made out of trees. He's a lover of trees. I saw this and I thought, that's it. And one reason is because if you've ever walked the Winterthur landscape, the trees are phenomenal. We have many state champions, and they really are the bones of the garden. So we sacrificed a couple bones of this garden. We took some trees from our own landscape, some beech, and gave them a different life. So here is them being situated and placed on very uneven surface, so the folks had an interesting time moving these pillars in. The fun little thing is that this little guy, this little root sprout, wanted to be a part of the process, so he came along and made it through that whole process there. William Cahill, who does the thatching for us in Enchanted Woods, he was doing some work on that, and I asked him to stay over and help with the thatching, or the twiggery as I like to call it. So here we are putting together the lathing made out of bittersweet and grapevine and things of that sort, and then we were attaching twigs and bundled twigs to it. The architect and the engineer were helping with the wall, making sure that it is stabilized. And then here's the completed piece. Lastly is the needle's eye. And the needle's eye, the inspiration for the needle's eye was the needle's eye. The needle's eye originally is from South Yorkshire in England, and is about 46 feet tall. Came out of a wager, a drunken wager. I bet I can drive my carriage through that, and it was created. I don't know if the bet ever went through, but ours is situated in a pond. This was an interesting life that came to it. It came to us in pieces. A lot of things came to us in pieces, and all I can think about is, what are people thinking is coming in the door of Winterthur with all these strange pieces? So it's constructed outside and then put together by our facility staff. It was a drive-it system that was put in to kind of create that facade, and then you can see the floating elements there coned off. It was then disassembled and then reassembled on site and then put in place with a crane. So the Follies, short and sweet, they are meant to make us pay attention to the landscape. Here you have a beautiful field, but all of a sudden you have that Greek piece of architecture there, that neoclassical architecture, and you're paying attention to the landscape. Once you're in it, you're looking at the detail, maybe seeing the landscape through it. And then once you're in it, it gives you a whole different view from the area in which you came, and framing views and picking up on different moments and allowing you to just pause in the garden, which we don't often do. So the final, you never saw the needle's eye in place. We had fog a couple of days ago, and I ran out and was taking pictures of all the Follies in fog. And no matter what the time of day, it's just this wonderful interpretation and reinterpretation of a garden. So I encourage you all to come out to visit anytime you have a moment. So thank you.